Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the ATU Sports Corner here with the March Madness predictions. Caden is going to now be breaking down the South region for us. Caden, how you feeling?
I think the South region, I think there's a lot of good teams here. I think one team that got a bad draw personally before we get into it really, I think number 5 Vanderbilt. I think they should have gotten a higher seed than that personally. I think Florida really has a tough road to get to the Elite Eight or Final Four. To be in 1 seed, I think the South is one of the tougher regions that we have. We just did the West. I think Arizona had a pretty clear-cut path. I think it's going to be different for Florida.
Yeah, Florida does have a very interesting path, but I think a game that probably will not be interesting for them is their first round matchup, the 1 versus 16. They'll face off against either Lehigh or Prairie View. I mean, you got anything to say?
1 seeds have won their matchups against 16 seeds by a margin of 32.9 points in the last 2 years. So I think Florida is going to handle it pretty easily. I don't think they're going to struggle at all. The last player I know to play for either Prairie View or Lehigh was C.J. McCollum. So I think Florida has an easy win here. And does Prairie View and Lehigh, is that tonight in there?
I think it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow? That'll be an interesting one. But I think Florida will pick up an easy win.
Yeah, no arguments for me with that one. So we'll just move right on ahead to Clemson versus Iowa.
I pushed for Clemson personally to get a very good seed in this tournament. I think the 8 wasn't too bad of a draw. They'll face Florida in the second round because I think they are going to win this game against Iowa. They have Bennett Sturts, who came from Drake. He's averaging 20 points a game. He's having a really good year, but Clemson plays very good team basketball. They have a pretty decent defense. They only give up 66 points per game. Their scoring numbers individually don't really shock you. Their leading scorer is R.J. Godfrey at 11 points per game. It's all really balanced. Them in Iowa, they average the same amount of points per game at 74, but Iowa has a high score and Bennett starts at 20. But I think Clemson, they can pick up a big win here.
I think I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. Like you said, these are 2 very defensive teams. This is probably not going to be a very high-scoring game, but I do like Bennett Sturts to create some offense with that slow-paced Iowa team. And I know Clemson is dealing with some injuries, and that also concerns me. But I just think Bennett Sturts alone might be enough offense to get the job done for the Hawkeyes.
I could definitely see that. The main thing that worries me with Iowa is they're 1-8 against top 25 teams, and they were 10-10 in conference. Now, the Big Ten was great. It was a lot better than the ACC, which is what the Clemson played in. But I just think Clemson has an edge here.
Yeah, they are not doing great against top 25 teams, but luckily Clemson is not a top 25 team, so they don't have to worry about that in this matchup. But a team that is certainly in the top 25 is Vanderbilt, a team I also believe was underseeded, taking on 12-seeded McNeese. Imagine the Cowboys aren't real happy with this draw.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are happy McNeese made it to the tournament again. The team they upset last year was Clemson. In the tournament.
Ugly game.
It was a terrible game. That was one of the first March Madness games that I watched, and I was heavily disappointed. I thought last year was going to be really bad. But it turned out to be a great tournament. And Vanderbilt, they have a great dynamic duo in Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles. It was great to watch them in the SEC tournament taking down Florida. And they lost in a good game to Arkansas. And the Hogs looked really good in that tournament, though. We just talked about them in the West region. McNeese looks really good too. Larry Johnson averaging 17.5 points per game. McNeese has a good ball club. Just a terrible draw for a 12 seed. Vanderbilt is not who you want to see in this predicament, and I think Vandy picks up a win.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I do think McNeese deserves a lot of respect. Larry Johnson, Tyshawn Archie, Javon Garcia, DJ Richards, Garway Duel, those are all like very respectable players, and for a team as small as a school of McNeese, to have those sort of caliber of players is really impressive. But, I mean, like you said, just an absolutely brutal draw for the Cowboys. I have a hard time seeing them slowing down that Vandy offense.
Yeah, Tyler Tanner has impressed me all tournament. He had a really slow start to that Arkansas game. I believe he started 1 for 7. But Duke Miles, he was there to pick him up. They 1-2 punch. If one's on, the other is usually on too. But even if they're not, I think they're going to be enough to beat McNeese with that guard tandem.
Yeah, so we will move on to the next matchup, and that is a very interesting one. Troy as the 13 versus Nebraska as the 4. Nebraska has never won an NCAA tournament game. Is this the time they get it done?
I think the Cornhuskers will pick up their first NCAA tournament win. When I was watching the selection show and I saw Troy got a bid, I think Troy has a good team. They're 22-11. The record doesn't really show to prove that, but I think Troy has a really good team. But Nebraska, yet again, that's an unfortunate draw. Price Sanford does not get enough credit for what he does on the floor, averaging almost 18 points per game. I think Nebraska has a really good team. Troy with an unfortunate draw. I don't think they can win this one.
Yeah, I do think this is an unfortunate draw for Troy. They are a very physical, grind you down team. And with Nebraska, it's a lot of off-ball movement, and I don't think their style of defense is really conducive to getting stops against that type of offense. And I think Nebraska's shooting will just be too much for the Trojans to hold down.
Yeah, Nebraska also holds a very good defense. They only give up 66 points per game. And Troy, they're 134 in the BPI rank. They haven't played a top 25 team all year. This is going to be completely different competition than what they've seen. A Big Ten team like Nebraska. It's going to be physical basketball. It's going to be hard to keep up with. And if Price Sanford is rolling, there's just no chance.
Yeah, so we will move on to the next matchup. Both of these teams are going not too far down the road, especially the Tar Heels will be facing off against VCU. No Caleb Wilson in this one against the A-10 champs, but they are very close to home, like I said. What do you got?
Usually, if you see North Carolina in the tournament, they're a heavy competitor. But Caleb Wilson is out. It's very unfortunate. They're left to Henry Visar. He's averaging 16 points a game. He is very good. North Carolina still has a very good ball club. But I think that's going to have them on the rails. VCU, they have Terrence Hill Jr., who's averaging 14.5 points per game. He can score a bucket at will. And they have Lazer Djokovic. What a name. Lazer Djokovic. He's averaging 13.5 points a game. I like VCU to win this one. This is going to be one of my upsets of this region. And I think VCU advances to take on the winner of Illinois-Penn.
Yeah, I'm agree with you on this one. I think that UNC, to really do much of anything in this tournament, they're going to have to get absolutely major production out of Seth Trimble, and I just don't really see him being able to carry that much of an offensive load against a VCU team that is very different. They're very spread out. It's a lot of off-ball movement, swinging the rock around, and I just don't know if UNC is going to be able to keep up with that. But speaking of keeping up with offenses, Illinois has a wild one. Do you think Penn from the Ivy is going to be able to shut that down?
You know, there's always an Ivy team that does good in the tournament, it feels like, and I think it could be Penn. But they got an unfortunate draw. Illinois is really good at basketball. TJ Power was it 44 points in the Ivy League championship game?
Wild.
He was phenomenal. He's averaging 16.8 points per game. He was a former top 15 recruit. He was at, I believe, Duke for a year, then Virginia. Now he's at Penn. He's phenomenal, but I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up with Keaton Wagler, and Andre Stojakovic. Illinois is a really good ball club. I've seen that Con Kneppel had Illinois in his Final Four. I think that could prove to be true if they get the right draw. I think Illinois advances against Penn.
Yeah, this Illinois offense is just far too much. They have 5 guys over 10 a game, and the 6 guys, Vanavir Visic, who we've seen have very good performances in the past. I can't imagine that Penn defense doing much to contain the Illini. So that moves us on to the next matchup. Now, this is a very interesting one, an absolute contrast of styles. St. Mary's with the slow, methodical, grab your rebounds, play hard. And Texas A&M with your buckyball, run up and down the floor. Who cares if we turn it over? Let's just run. What do you think this one's going to look like?
I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I can't wait to watch this one. I love St. Mary's basketball. I think they always have a good team every year coming from the same conference as Gonzaga. They're always overshadowed, though. They never really get as much look or as much eye-popping attention. But I think they've earned this 7 seed. I think last year they had a really good team. I took them to either my Sweet 16 or Elite 8 last year. That did not happen. I will say that. That did not happen. But I will take them to beat Texas A&M. like you said, this A&M basketball team, they play very interesting, and you have to in the SEC whenever you're not a top dog, and that's what they did this year. Rashawn Agee, he averages 14.5 points per game. Rylan Griffin at 11.6. They're just not going to be able to keep up with this St. Mary's defense. They rebound the ball at a very good level, and they have an offense that usually isn't something that you see out of the Gales, and this year they can score the basketball.
Yeah, this is a really tough one for me to pick, but I do think at the end of the day, I am going to disagree with you here. I think the Texas A&M athleticism might be a little bit too much for the Gales to handle. They have a ton of guys who are running up and down the floor constantly. They're in shape enough to do that. They're athletic enough to do that. They're just the better athletes, and I think that will be the difference in that one.
Yeah, honestly, before we even talk about this next game, I don't think it's going to matter who wins this one because they're going to have a tough draw.
No, it's a very, very tough Houston team playing against an Idaho squad who was not even really highly ranked in the Big Sky. Shout out Starch Madness, though. We do love some late-night college conference championship games. But are you going to surprise me here at all?
I'm not. I'm just going to take the Cougars up. They don't impress me. I said that a couple weeks ago on here when Brandon wasn't here. I said Houston has one of the most disgusting offenses that I've ever had the displeasure of watching. They're ranked like 143rd in points per game, and they're like 12th in the Big 12, and Kansas State plays in the Big 12, so that's how you know it's bad. But Houston, that offense, it's just terrible to watch. They have great defense. I mean, that game against, who is it, Kansas, where they just absolutely shut them down not too long ago, it was insane. Houston has a great ball club. Just their offense scares me, but I think they'll beat Idaho pretty easily.
Yeah, not too much to say there. If there was a team I expected to score the least amount of points in the first round, I think it's going to be the Vandals. So we will just move right on along to the second round where Florida maybe faces their first test of the tournament against Clemson. Do you think that Clemson will give them a run for their money?
I think it could be close. I think first half, Clemson is going to keep this in the work. I think it's going to be a ball game in the first half, but I think Florida slowly, second half basketball, another 20 minutes, they're going to pull away. The roster's too deep. Alex Condon, Thomas Houff, Xavier Lee. Boogie Fland has started to come on recently. He's had a lot better season. I think Florida beats Clemson, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
Yeah, I agree with you. If this is the second round matchup, I think that those front court guys for Florida are just going to run absolute circles around the Tigers and have a hard time seeing them keeping it close. So we'll just move right on along to Vandy versus Nebraska. Now this is an interesting one. Two teams that shoot the ball very well, teams that have very strong guard play, and I'm not real sure what I would pick in this one.
Yeah, this is unfortunate for Nebraska. Again, it goes back to Vandy getting a very low seed than what I thought they deserved. And that's unfortunate for the Cornhuskers now. And both teams, they like to light it up from deep. Tyler Tanner and Price Sanford, they will pull it from anywhere on the hardwood. And I just think Vandy's depth, especially, I think their 1-2 punch with Duke Miles and Tyler Tanner is going to be too strong for the Cornhuskers to keep up with. And I think Vandy advances to an SEC matchup, a rematch, which is surprising for the tournament to me. To see a team that just played in the SEC tournament, usually they try to keep those teams away from each other. But this is going to be a rematch between Vandy and Florida, in my opinion. Yeah,
I'm going to agree with you. There is a lot of SEC teams in the bracket, so I do understand how that matchup came to be. But we'll get to it in a little bit, but there's going to be some bad blood in the air if that matchup comes to be. But we'll move on to an interesting one, VCU versus Illinois. Can they hold down that Illini offense?
I don't think so. I think VCU, I think their luck is going to run out. And just like all my brackets, I feel like I have no upsets. But it's just playing the favorite. It's just looking at the favorites. It's just taking the best chance to win. And I think that's going to be Illinois. They're too good. And I think VCU, they had their great upset against North Carolina. It's just not going to be enough for Illinois.
Yeah, VCU hasn't really played a lot of top-tier competition this year, and Illinois is exactly that. Once again, I just think that Illini offense is too much. But a game that will not be talked about much offensively would be St. Mary's in Houston. Can the Gales limit that offense enough to where they can actually pull off the upset?
You know, St. Mary's has a really good defense. And in years past, they haven't had a very good offense, but they have a good offense this year. averaging about 75 or over points per game. Houston offense is disgusting, but their defense is like nothing I've ever seen before. But in a defensive battle against a team like the Gales, here's going to be my big upset. I'm going to take St. Mary's again this year. Give me the Gales, baby.
Really?
Again, I'm trusting them again. I don't like it.
I don't either.
I like it. Give me the Gales, baby.
I do not like it at all. I think that those Houston guards, Kingston Flemings, Emmanuel Sharp, and Milos Uzan are just going to be too much for the Gales to handle. Both these two teams do rebound the ball very well. They have strong bigs inside who love to tap the ball back out to the guards, but I mean, I don't see it right now.
This all really ties back to me last year losing my bracket pool on Houston winning. Last year I had Houston to win my tournament, and they lost to Florida in a terrible, terrible fashion. But I can't watch Houston basketball, so I want them out. Give me the Gales.
Well, speaking of Houston basketball, these South semi and finals will be in Houston, which I think will be a major advantage to Houston when they get there, not if. I am taking the Cougars to get there, but you will not be. You will be taking Florida and Vandy to be the first matchup there. Will this be revenge or a replay?
It's going to be a replay.
Wow. Okay.
Give me Vandy. And Tyler Tanner is going to continue to dominate. I am not a fan of Xavier Lee, and he's not going to be able to keep up with him or Duke Miles. Vandy has their number. They just proved it. And what's March Madness? Have a little bit of fun on the bracket. It has to come right here. Vandy to the Elite Eight. It's beautiful.
I do love some fun on the bracket. This is not where I would pick it to come. I do really like this Florida team. Their trio of big men, Thomas Houck, Alex Condon, and Ruben Chinyulu, I think will just be way too much for Vandy to take down. And I think the Gators are going to come out with a lion in their chest. I do not think they're going to want to get beat by Vanderbilt twice in a row, and I think they're going to get it done. So, very interesting South bracket we have going here, and a very interesting matchup we have for the final Sweet 16 game in Illinois versus St. Mary's. Once again, St. Mary's against a high-paced offense, a team that can score buckets in a hurry. What do you got?
I think this is where the road comes to an end, and that's going to be with the Fighting Illini. Keaton Wagler has proved himself throughout the year. He came into the season as not a very highly regarded player, but has earned that respect. And I think Illinois picks up another big win. Their road hasn't been too tough, especially whenever the Gales beat Houston. That's going to make their road a little bit easier. And I think Illinois advances to this Elite Eight.
If that is the matchup, I agree. But I do not believe that is the matchup. I believe it will be Houston and Illinois, and Houston playing in Houston I think will be a major advantage for them, basically a home game. But you now have Vandy and Illinois facing off for a spot in the Final Four, two very offensive-focused teams. Oh, we're already clocking it in. We're not even going to say it. We're just filling in Vandy immediately. What's up with that?
I'm just feeling the Commodores today.
Okay.
I mean, Nate Bargatze, I mean, come on, man. I mean, we got to feel the Commodores. Vandy football did great this year. Why can't basketball? I mean, Tyler Tanner, I'm going to keep preaching on him. This is going to be his tournament. We're looking for a player to pop off. We're looking for a player to have a big tournament. Tyler Tanner.
Tyler Tanner's a great player, shoots it very well from three, even though he doesn't necessarily take a ton of those.
He's streaky.
He really likes to get to the rim, even though he shoots the ball, I believe, at 40% from downtown. You know, if this matchup does come to be in the Elite Eight, I don't necessarily disagree. I think this would be a very fun game and also a close game. But I personally would be taking Houston to get out of this bracket and take down Florida in the Elite Eight. I think that advantage of being in Houston would just be too much. But you got any final words for your bracket here, Caden?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it and I'm just wondering what I did.
We started off so chalk, and then all of a sudden
I can't stay that way. It's March. It's March Madness. Something crazy's got to happen. Somewhere you have to take a chance. Last year, all 4 1 seeds made it to the Final Four. what are the odds it happens again? So let's take the team that already beat a 1 seed this year to do it again.
Well,
give me the Commodores, baby.
I guess we'll have to see. If that happens, it will most certainly be the year of the door with their football success, their always baseball success, and now basketball success. But that is all we have for the South region. When we see you next time, I will be the one breaking the bracket down, and Caden will be asking me the questions for the Midwest and the Eastern brackets. So we will see you next time. Thanks for watching.